Welcome to the Westborough Garden Club's annual holiday fair and festival, and we have a very special speaker tonight who Trudy here will be introducing. We are searching to find out if we can put a little more light on the stage. So that's held us up for a few minutes, but we're going to start anyway, so I hope everybody can see our guest speaker okay. And I hope you have a wonderful time and enjoy the show. Thank you.
Our speaker tonight is Deborah Trickett. She is a Massachusetts Certified Horticulturist and a Massachusetts Certified Landscape Professional. She's a frequent lecturer to many, and she talks mostly about container gardens. She's been at the New England Flower Show, the Connecticut Flower Show, Newport Flower Show, and she has shared her passions for perennials in the Perennial Plant Association Annual Symposium. She was a featured speaker at the Grand Garden Show in Mackinac Island. She teaches in classes and workshops at Arnold Arboretum in Boston. Her work has been featured in the Boston Globe, the American Gardener, and the Garden Gate of New England, and even the Home Magazine, as well as the TV show, New England Dream House. Enjoy, and we're very glad that you're here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. If I start to go down, just do this in the back, okay? Not a problem at all. And again, like Trudy said, the lighting, I can see everything clearly, but if you're way in the back, feel free to move down. I don't throw things. I'm pretty nice, so you'd be safe if you wanted to move down, but hopefully we can get a little more lights, or you'll notice when you come down later to look at the raffle items just how pretty they might be. But I wanted to say, I think I know why you're all here. Anybody else have dead moms in their pots right now? Yeah. I know you're all here. You're like, we just need something, we need something. So we need to get rid of those dead moms. And as sad as that is, there's something sadder. Are you ready? And I see people do that all the time. They have these dead moms and rotten cabbages, and they throw some silk poinsettias in there thinking that's going to make it look pretty. It doesn't. You're not fooling anybody. A poinsettia is a tropical plant. It's not going to grow in your window box. I'm going to show you how easy it is to create some really cool winter wow containers. And I have another talk that I do called jaw-dropping, traffic-stopping, get your neighbors talking containers. And we can do that in the winter as well. I want to have you guys, I want to encourage you to create something that's so unusual that people go, wow. Of course, I've actually been out to the raffle, and I think that I don't need to talk to anybody in this group, because did you see how beautiful all those raffles? Yeah. I'm like, they know everything. So anyways, I will share what I know. But let's start off by talking about preparation. This is the hard time of year when I start looking at the forecast and I get nervous because it says it's in the 20s. And we know if we have container gardens, what happens when the soil is in the 20s. Yes. And so you're going, you feel like you're in a horror movie. You're just over and over. So keep an eye on those temperatures. If you can get your stuff in sooner rather than later, that's always a good idea. If your containers have already frozen in place, what do? You can try putting a black hefty bag over them, getting that solar energy. I sometimes will use a crowbar and just try to break up the dirt a little bit. I've used a drill. If you can bring your pots inside and let them thaw, that also helps. And a couple other things. With your containers, I always say get off the beaten path. Don't use the same containers that everybody else is. And again, out in the raffle, did you see the tea kettle with a container? How creative is that? Now, if you guys are like me, you have junk in your attic, you have junk in your basement, you probably have junk in your garage, right? You can turn that into a planter. It can be really cool. So use an unusual planter, but during the winter, what don't we want to use? Who knows? Terracotta, right? So just because it's so porous, it's going to get the water in there, it's going to freeze, and it's going to crack. Sometimes if it's glazed, they will tell you that it's winterproof. If the manufacturer says so, whatever. Finally, before you even put your winter containers together, there's a couple things to consider. First of all, you want to think of where your container is going. Okay? If your house sits way back from the road and people are flying by at 50 miles an hour, you don't want to use a pine cone, okay? You want to use a pine cone. So you in the back, do you even know what this is? Probably can't see it, right? Can you see this? It's a pine cone. So if your house sits back, or if you're doing a commercial place and people are flying by, go big and go bold. Okay, so that's very important. The other thing to consider is your background. If you have urns by your door and your house is white and you use those white birch poles that everybody likes to use, is anybody going to really see them? There's not a lot of contrast there, right? It's the same thing with this beautiful, what I call this red twig dogwood. Beautiful, very, very great in winter arrangements. But if you have a brick house, are you gonna notice it? Probably not. So try to contrast your arrangement with what your background is. And finally, lastly about this is, do you have sun or shade? And people say, well, what does that matter, Deb? It's wintertime. I'll tell you why. Some greens do better in a full sun situation. Some greens will not do well at all in a full sun. So really look carefully at where your container's going. Consider what kind of sun you have. And I will go through some of my favorite greens, because this is where you can really create an unusual container. I love pine, but I don't use pine. I very seldom use pine. Why do you think that is? Because in 3 weeks, this is going to be brown, right? I love pine because it's graceful. This is actually the only pine, this one and shore pine I will use. This is called long needled pine, and it's thicker, so it doesn't dry out quite so quickly. But regular old Pinus strobus, the eastern white pine, you know, unless you have a tree that you can keep cutting it from and putting it in, for me, it's not a long-lived evergreen. My favorite evergreen for containers is we're finishing up our winter containers now, and we won't go back to our clients till the end of March. So I need something that's going to look good for that long. So this is noble fir. It's beautiful. It's got a bluish tint to it, and it will last until the end of March. It's sometimes even into April. It really always will look this good. Now, granted, it's more expensive than pine. But to me, it's cheaper in the long run because I'm going to buy it once. With pine, I'm going to have to keep going back. I love that, I don't know if you can see in the back, this is incense cedar. Look at those yellow buds. Isn't that beautiful? And it's so graceful. The whole trick, I think, when putting together a winter container, because we're working primarily with greens, lots of different leaf shapes, lots of different textures, okay? This is another great fir. This is called Nordman fir. Deep, deep green on the front, silver on the back. So if you take this one bunch, but you turn your branches, you already have great contrast, right? I love this. This is that Port Orford cedar, just that graceful draping. Variegated boxwood or Oregonia. This is great. For some reason, it's been in short supply this year. But if you're doing all greens, it's nice to add something a little bit brighter to lighten it up. So variegated boxwood or Oregonia is great. Who doesn't love magnolia? Beautiful, right? If you have a rhododendron bush or you have a laurel shrub, you can use those as well. When you're using something like this, I recommend maybe giving it a coat with this wilt proof. Are you all familiar with this? Kind of like when you put moisturizer on after the shower, right? It holds in the moisture. So you just spray this. It's like a waxy coating, and it will help it not to dry out so quickly. And finally, I love boxwood, but I love German boxwood. Can you see this? When you come down, you'll notice it's got a much thicker leaf, and so I think it reads better at a distance. So this is one of my other favorites. And finally, you know, the nurseries are onto this whole container craze, which has been going on for a long time now. You can buy evergreens that are already in a pot. This is a beautiful leucothoe. If you have a large enough planter, you can use, just evergreens, and then you don't have to replace them. They can live in that planter. If you do choose to go that route, make sure you water them until we get really hard freeze, because all the moisture that they take up into those leaves, that's all they're going to have for the winter. So you want to make sure they're plenty well watered, so when those drying winds come, they'll be okay. All right, are we all set? Ready to go? How do we start? Where do we start? I don't know. You know what? I have to, because I'm like a kid at a bowling alley. I need those bumpers, to keep me kind of centered. So I always start with some kind of a theme. So if I have a client and I think, we're going to do this theme. So if I say to you, we're going to do Currier and Ives, what does that conjure up? Sleighs and what, traditional holly, like red berries, plaid ribbon, right? What if I said, and I donated a bunch of these window boxes, what if I said Dr. Seuss? What would you think? Grinch, or maybe like I did lime green and hot pink and tangerine and whirligigs, all kinds of, if you said preppy, if you said nutcracker. So I typically come up with a bit of a theme, and then finally, once I have that theme and I go shopping, because let's face it, you go into the nurseries today or any of those stores, and they've got Christmas music on and it smells like cinnamon, and it's very easy to get distracted, am I right? So if I have that theme, I go in there and I'm pretty much getting what I need. But I want to talk about accessories because this is one of the few times that we will use them. We don't do it typically spring, summer, fall. But in the winter when we're doing these containers, we can. So I say it's the 4 B's. And I want to start off with berries. These are great to use in your winter containers, but don't use the real ones. Why? Because I can spend a lot of money on a bunch of winterberry holly this big, and then my clients will call 2 weeks later and say, why do you have sticks in my pot? Because guess what? Those lovely birds will come and eat them all. I love birds and I love winterberry holly, but I plant it in my garden. If you're going to use berries in your container, I recommend using artificial ones. And you can come up and see these later. Hard plastic. Squeeze it with your finger. If it's that foam, don't do it because those are going to freeze and they're going to pop on you. So that's the first B. The second B is branches. What a great way to add height to our winter containers. We have the red twig dogwood. There's also, if you have that brick house and you want contrast, we have yellow twig dogwood, right? That could be really pretty. I love just birch and also just being able to spray paint. So fun. And the nice thing is if you have like a container and you have branches in it and you have the greens, and like say maybe in the end of March your greens start to look bad, so you take them out, but it's still too early to plant your spring, just leave your branches in there and put some moss at the base. You've got a great little placeholder. So berries, branches, and then one of my favorite B's, botanicals. Have you noticed that this time of year, if you've left your garden standing or if you've been walking in the woods, you see all the dried flowers and the dried, even if it's dried weeds. To me, they're so sculptural and they're so pretty. Like your dried hydrangeas, those are so pretty. Or your dried sedum, those are so pretty. And you know what I love? You cannot go wrong with spray paint. This is one of my secret weapons. So you take these beautiful botanicals, like I collected some milkweed pods the other day, and I spray painted them gold on the inside. So pretty. So botanicals, and they're free. These are normally things that you would have in your garden or growing on the side of the road. So botanicals, and then finally, so berries, branches, botanicals, and the final B is bows or ribbon. If you're doing anything, this time of year we can get away with using ribbon, and I think that ribbon can really make your creation stand out. And you don't, you need to all repeat after me. We don't need to use red plastic ribbon. Repeat after me. We don't need to use red plastic ribbon. For some reason we all think, well, it's outside, so I have to use a plastic ribbon. No, this is velvet. I've used taffeta, I've used silk. Does it run? No. Is it fine? Yes. If you're concerned about weatherproof, just wet that ribbon and grab it with a white paper towel. And if it leaves something behind, maybe don't use it. But this is buffalo plaid. I mean, this is actually a ribbon, but it looks like moss. So isn't that pretty? I mean, and this, you'll come down here, you'll have to see later. This is actually, looks like birch bark. And it's actually a ribbon too. So I think, and I sometimes spend so much on ribbon. I think I'm a bit of a junkie. But we can reuse that from year to year. The same thing with these artificial berries, right? You can buy the real ones that are expensive and then they're gone. You can buy these that are about the same price and you can use them over and over. I have some of these that I've had for 10 years. So that's the end of that. Now we're going to actually get started. I'm going to show you, put this all together. And guys, we have 5 things to do. So I'm going to be flying through here. It's going to be like those cooking shows. I've had to do a little pre-staging. Okay, so number 1, we're going to start with a container. We drill holes in our containers always, right? Do you think we need new soil this time of year? Who says yes? Who says no? And the rest of you don't care. And so you're not playing my game. No, you know what? The soil that's in your containers is fine. Some people will even just use sand. Some people use Oasis, whatever. Whatever's in your container is absolutely fine. So here's my first container. And I have a thought in mind. Oh, before we start though, here we go. I need you all to repeat after me. She's not a floral designer. 1, 2, 3. And you know why? Is because one time I was doing this presentation and I had the whole club was on the edge of their seats. They were just like so into it. I was using chunky red poles, and I put one pole down and they all, like in unison, they all kind of went. And I said, what did I do? And they said, well, it's not Ikebana now. And I said, I don't even know what Ikebana is. So obviously I broke a rule. This is all supposed to be fun, people, and if you're not having fun, thank you, you're doing it wrong. So if you're not having fun, go pour yourself a glass of wine, put some music on, come back and have fun with this, okay? So I'm not a floral designer. So I might put this together and you might go, I wouldn't have done that, or I'd change that and put it over there. Great, do that. If you bought raffle tickets and you win one of these, you can change it. So, all right, you won't hurt my feelings because I'll be gone, but you know. And sometimes during the presentation, I might ask you guys, do you think we should go to the left or to the right? Because I want this to be approachable. It's not brain surgery. If it was, I couldn't do it, okay? But I'm a girl who likes to have fun in the dirt, and if I can do this, you can do this. And like I said, it's not a huge commitment, it's just a container garden. So let's start off, and I have a kind of an interesting plan here. This one is going to be unexpected. It's going to be a little bit more contemporary. I think we're kind of all traditional New Englanders, and we like our Currier and Ives, but I thought, let's mix it up a little bit and let's do something different. So this is going to be more contemporary. These are just red bamboo poles. This whole thing is filled with soil. I no longer fill the bottom of my pots with different things because the science has shown that that's not really good for the roots. So I fill everything with soil. So this container is going to be seen from all sides. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this a lot. Some of the other containers that I start working on will just be seen from one side. Very, very simple. Very, very not necessarily Christmassy or holiday, but just very winterish, but also very, very contemporary. When you mass things together, or you do groups of things, or you block things, it reads as much more contemporary than as if you mix them all together. So now I have some of this beautiful Nordman fir that I talked about, and look at the contrast between the red and the green. So red and green are opposite the color wheel, so you're going to get the most contrast from them. So that's why I'm definitely going to put that right up against that. And I've already cut these, and that's the other thing. Greens can be very expensive, as we know. So try to cut them carefully so that you can sometimes even get two out of them. Again, I'm sorry that you probably can't see too well in the back, but you'll come down here and you'll see a little bit better. I'm just placing these around. The other thing too, to me it's a suggestion, but I think it kind of makes sense to our eyes. You don't want whatever's up here to be taller than twice the height of your pot. Doesn't that make sense? It's kind of like if this was all up here, you'd be like, ooh, that looks like it should tip over. So I'm going to keep that kind of in mind as I'm building this. Has anybody here done their pots yet? Ah, you're all waiting, I get it. Well, maybe you'll win one and you won't have to do your pots. If anybody has any questions, you can always, I hear whispering, so then I think you're talking about me. So isn't this very simple? Yeah. How simple is that? But there's one more element we're going to add to it. Like I said, who does not love magnolia? And magnolia is one of those that's quite expensive, so you really want to cut it carefully. Very seldom will I use the whole long stalk of magnolia. Usually I use the ends, and then I use, I won't, in other words, I won't have it be this tall, unless I do a really big pot. Normally I can get 2 or 3 cuts out of one stem. So all I'm going to do now, you see the contrast, you've got a different leaf. It's a little bit shiny. I'm going to put that around the base of the Nordman fir. So again, this is reading very, very strict, very linear, very contemporary, and it might not be for everybody, and this is what I love about what I get to do, is it's never boring. I have some clients that are all over this, and this is all they want, and then I have other clients that are, give me the plaid ribbon and the silver bells and all that kind of stuff. So that's what makes it so fun. It's never boring. The material is never the same. In fact, I have not done one cookie cutter pot. I never have. Every client gets something that's custom. And that's what makes it fun. By the way, and I'll mention too, down here on the stage, I have some postcards that have some information on my website. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. If anybody wants to see even more examples of my work, you can go on and see pictures of my wreaths and different things that I've done. I love the magnolia too because it has a little bit, the brown and the green give it a nice contrast. And I'm just sticking this in wherever I can find it, making sure that it looks somewhat even. And then whoever wins this, when you get it home, I would say give it a good watering, and then everything will freeze in place. That's the best thing. Adjusting. You guys, are you asleep on me out there? No. Everybody had too many of those yummy snacks, and now you're all falling asleep?
Just watching.
So what do we think? How simple is that, right? Very, very simple. So that's very unexpected Christmas or unexpected holiday is very contemporary winter, I guess we would call that. Well, there's number one. Now, the next one. This is a big pot. So this is a large pot. It's, as you know, I just told you, it's all filled with soil. Whoever wins this, it's heavy enough now, so I didn't water it. When you get it home, give it a nice watering. So I have my pot, I have all the dirt in there. I've drilled holes. Oh, what do we use to cover the holes? Anybody know? Coffee filters. Look at you, coffee filters. Someone told me coffee filters years ago, and I said, this is awesome, but guess what? I found a better one. I've always had coffee filters, and I had a woman come up to me, and she says, used dryer sheets. See? Because coffee filters, after a while, they break down, right? But a used dryer sheet, it's great. So, all right, so now what do? I have a pot. Where do I start next, you guys? When I go to the nursery, how do I stay on the rails?
Theme.
What's my theme? Okay. I think for this one, my theme is going to be botanical. Okay. So imagine what you might find if you were walking in the woods. That kind of an idea. So, I'm going to start off with some fir boughs. This one is probably going to be seen more from one side. I never like to have the back be completely naked, but it's going to be pretty much seen from one side, maybe going against like the side porch or something like that. And when you put your branches in your pots, don't put them like this, like little soldiers, right? Turn them. Give them some movement because it'll make it much more interesting. And to be honest, most of the time I have no idea what I'm going to do when I'm doing a container. I know what colors I've got going. I know I have a good variety of plant material. And then I just get to the job site and I start playing with it. And that's, like I said, that's the fun part. You want to be able to do that and not be so tense and stressed out about it. There's enough in the world that will do that to us. So I'm just building my base. Can you see how easy that is? Yeah. Just find some nice, these will last forever and ever. They're big boughs. And this is my base. Now I need to start filling it in, and I want to add a little bit of different texture. So next in line comes my German boxwood, okay? A little bit taller. And this is, like I said, the German boxwood is great, and it lasts and lasts, and it just never dries out. I like the fact that the leaf is bigger. I'm so grateful for this Lazy Susan. When I first started doing this like 20 years ago, I didn't have a Lazy Susan, so I'd go like this. And I'd run around, and then I'd have to come back, and so now I'm saving you guys from having to look at me running around. Oh, you know what I meant to say too, like wreaths, I love wreaths. Who here loves wreaths? Okay, but again, I love who here loves the Cub Scouts? I love the Cub Scouts. But if you're going to be doing your own containers and your own planters, why would you farm out your wreath? I'm so grateful that I've finally convinced, the majority of my clients to let me do a wreath for them. Because if you have a theme, like botanical, why would you do a botanical, this, and then go out and buy something with a red ribbon and gold bells? Does it make any sense? Buy your wreath undecorated from the Cub Scouts. Support them. But then go home, and it's so much fun to make your own wreath. That's what I really love to do. So you'll see I'm going to try to put together a wreath here really quickly. So can you see we have different greens, right? Now let's add in another texture. These are both somewhat coarse. Let's add in some arborvitae. And this has a little bit of a yellowish to the back of it, so I like that because it brightens it up again. Because like I said, when we're just dealing with all greens, it can get a little bit dark feeling. So by either adding like that variegated boxwood, or something like this, or something like the Oregonia, you can kind of lighten things up a bit. So just kind of building. And also, if you have expensive greens, and there's a couple bunches up here that are very, very pricey, don't waste them in the back. I think that kind of goes without saying. If you have something like even the magnolia or something, and this is against the wall, don't put the good stuff back here. You can fill this in with whatever you have left over. And another thing, when you're putting your planters together, if you have little bits and pieces left over, or like that you're cutting off, don't necessarily throw those away. And I'll tell you why when we get to working on the wreath. Okay, I think what do we think? So you see we're just building just different textures. So now, what was the theme? Botanical. I see no indication of a botanical theme here, really. So let's add something that might be botanical. We're going to add our tall stuff first. So let's add this guy. Anybody grow Actea or Semicifuga, bugbane? This is what it looks like when it dries, right? It's absolutely beautiful. First of all, if you don't grow it as a perennial, you should. It's a wonderful perennial, but it's really pretty when it dries. So I'm going to stick this in here. And I know they say with design you want to work in groups of 3s. Whatever. I think you work till you like what it looks like. That's what I say. So I have that one. Now I'm going to add some of these botanicals, and these are actually, I forget the name of it, clerodendron. It's this beautiful blue, late blooming shrub that I have, and when it dries, it's just really pretty. So I love to go out and grab that. And these are just going to give, in the lieu of branches, these will give a little bit of height. So this is going to be also a very subtle, just a very subtle, almost nature-inspired kind of palette. And because I love botanicals, look what else I have. Isn't that cool? I believe this is mullein or something. It's a weed. I know it's a weed. So if you're concerned, like when I go, like if you ever see me on the side of the road, that's me with the hefty bag and the pruners, cutting things like this. If you're concerned with weed seeds, then just let it dry and shake it off really well in a hefty bag, and most of those seeds are going to come off, so you don't need to worry about it. But I'm going to stick that in there. I love the color of that. And then I'm going to add some of these. It's almost like an astilbe plume. Astilbes are great too to add, like dried astilbe. But again, we could put dried sedums in here. I like the fact that all these are somewhat upright. So what else do you think, you guys, would we find in the woods? Berries, yep. What?
Fungus.
Fungus, there you go. We could find fungus in there. Yes, we could. I'm going to show you what we find in there. No deer were harmed in the getting of these antlers, don't worry. I love a little deer antler. I think that they add a little bit of something, so we're going to put some of those in here. But you know what? Let me show you something. Let me show you, well, let me put this little one in here, and I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to show you. So I'm going to snug that one in there. Can you see how we're building? Now the other thing that we don't want to do is if I want to put this one, where's that other little one? I want to put this one over here, right? I'm going to need to find my stick that I brought, but now I can't find, but I'll figure it out. But you never want to have something like this, just like this. Can you see what I'm saying that? That looks silly, right? You want to snug it down so that it feels like it's part of the arrangement. So even if you use a stick to make this higher, you want to make sure that it's not floating. That just looks silly. So if I can't find a stick, you know what I'll do? And I know it's here somewhere. Oh, I'll just use one of my dogwood sticks. One of the things you can also do is you can sometimes, because this has a wire, you can wrap it around one of your greens. So I'm just going to wrap it around this dogwood stem. Okay, who took my pruners? I'm telling you, you know those things that you have for glasses that you put around your neck? I think I need those for my pruners. Here they are. All right. Okay, so see how we're building? Building, building. I'm going to stick a little, we could find moss in the woods, right? I love moss. So we're going to just stick a little bit of moss in the very front. And then, we might find feathers in the woods, right? Now these are not real. Again, I don't, you know, what I like about these, you can find them online, they're silk. What I like about them is I can bend them any way I want. So depending on what the design is looking like, I can make them, I can manipulate them.
She took me to two, and that was it. Oh, it was so
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Westborough Garden Club's annual holiday fair and festival, and we have a very special speaker tonight who Trudy here will be introducing. We are searching to find out if we can put a little more light on the stage. So that's held us up for a few minutes, but we're going to start anyway, so I hope everybody can see our guest speaker okay. And I hope you have a wonderful time and enjoy the show. Thank you.
Our speaker tonight is Deborah Trickett. She is a Massachusetts Certified Horticulturist and a Massachusetts Certified Landscape Professional. She's a frequent lecturer to many, and she talks mostly about container gardens. She's been at the New England Flower Show, the Connecticut Flower Show, Newport Flower Show, and she has shared her passions for perennials in the Perennial Plant Association Annual Symposium. She was a featured speaker at the Grand Garden Show in Mackinac Island. She teaches in classes and workshops at Arnold Arboretum in Boston. Her work has been featured in the Boston Globe, the American Gardener, and the Garden Gate of New England, and even the Home Magazine, as well as the TV show New England Dream House. Enjoy, and we're very glad that you're here. Thank you.
Me. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. If I start to go down, just do this in the back, okay? Not a problem at all. And again, like Trudy said, the lighting I can see everything clearly, but if you're way in the back, feel free to move down. I don't throw things, I'm pretty nice, so you'd be safe if you wanted to move down, but hopefully we can get a little more lights, or you'll notice when you come down later to look at the raffle items just how pretty they might be. But I wanted to say, I think I know why you're all here. Anybody else have dead moms in their pots right now? Yeah. I know you're all here. You're like, we just need something, we need something. So we need to get rid of those dead moms. And as sad as that is, there's something sadder. Are you ready? And I see people do that all the time. They have these dead mums and rotten cabbages, and they throw some silk poinsettias in there thinking that's going to make it look pretty. It doesn't. You're not fooling anybody. A poinsettia is a tropical plant. It's not going to grow in your window box. I'm going to show you how easy it is to create some really cool winter wow containers. And I have another talk that I do called jaw-dropping, traffic-stopping, get your neighbors talking containers. And we can do that in the winter as well. I want to have you guys, I want to encourage you to create something that's so unusual that people go, wow. Of course, I've actually been out to the raffle, and I think that I don't need to talk to anybody in this group, because did you see how beautiful all those raffles? I'm like, they know everything. So anyways, I will share what I know. But let's start off by talking about preparation. This is the hard time of year when I start looking at the forecast and I get nervous because it says it's in the 20s. And we know if we have container gardens, what happens when the soil is in the 20s. Yes. And so you're going, you feel like you're in a horror movie. You're just over and over. So keep an eye on those temperatures. If you can get your stuff in sooner rather than later, that's always a good idea. If your containers have already frozen in place, what do? You can try putting a black hefty bag over them, getting that solar energy. I sometimes will use a crowbar and just try to break up the dirt a little bit. I've used a drill. If you can bring your pots inside and let them thaw, that also helps. And a couple other things. With your containers, I always say get off the beaten path. Don't use the same containers that everybody else is. So you don't have to do a lot of cutting, which is nice. If you buy the big boughs, sometimes you have to cut them, and that's not so easy.
Excuse me?
Yes?
What is inside the container? Is it dirt?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now this container is as nice as this is, and it's going to be perfect for this theme. Wouldn't be good for any of those if you wanted to do any of the evergreens. Oh, here's my thing. If you did anything like an evergreen in a pot, because it's not deep enough. If you want to have a live evergreen or leucothaway or something in your winter container, your pot needs to be at least 12 inches deep. And as much soil insulation you can give it is the best, because it gets cold and you don't want it to be freezing and thawing and going through that whole thing. So again, I'm not putting them like little soldiers. I'm just kind of filling in and turning them around and having them go at different angles. So after this, my ice baby, or cold as ice, I think I'll fill in again with that German boxwood. This is just such a great filler, and it's such a great contrasting kind of green. And I'm keeping this, again, we talked about the shallowness of this container. You're not going to want to have something up here, right? So I'm going to keep it relatively low.
What's the difference between German boxwood and American boxwood?
I don't really know, to be honest. I know the German boxwood, if you see this, it's got a much rounder leaf to it. It's a bigger leaf, whereas regular boxwood is much more thin-leaved. And I think a lot of our local boxwoods tend to brown out, or they kind of turn coppery in the winter. This never does. This tends to stay green. And I don't even know, to be honest, I only see this in the winter. So I don't even know if we can grow it here, but it's available as a cut, green in the winter, so that's what.
Where do you shop it?
Well, if I tell you, I have to kill you. Actually, I go to the flower market in Boston, but it's a wholesale place. But what do you have a good local nursery around here? Is it Ferris that I saw? That wreath out there was stunning, stunningly beautiful. But I think a good Harvey's. Okay, so any good flower shop? Okay. Well, but any good local nursery, you should be able to ask them if they can, even if they can bring it in for you, or if they can, because I think they're willing oftentimes to order as long as they know someone's going to be buying, what they bring in. All right, so I've kind of filled in there. Can you see? No big deal. Next, I'm going to add blueberry juniper, which has the little blueberries. Think about it, ice, ice, you know, your lips are blue, right? So we're going to do a little bit of blue in there too. And this, I just think this is, it's a very subtle color scheme, but it's going to be very pretty. You probably can't see, but now we've got the little blueberries in there. So now I think I'd like to add something that makes me feel like I'm cold as ice. So maybe I'll add some picks that look like ice. Oh, that's right? Whenever I find something interesting, whether it's Michael's or Hobby Lobby or wherever I might be, I always just pick them up because I think, oh, that could be fun. That could be a theme. So I have 3 of these. I'm just going to put them in there. And this is going to be really pretty, especially when the sun catches it, because it's going to glisten a little bit, almost like ice, till we get the real stuff.
It's coming.
I know, it's coming, you're right. What I don't like about this right now, this one's taller. So I want to move this, and I'm going to put this more in the center, and I'm going to move that shorter one. I'm not always about symmetrical necessarily, but I don't necessarily like matchy-matchy, but I think things need to feel balanced, and that doesn't feel balanced when that's too tall on that side. All right, so we have that. So ice, ice, baby, cold as ice. How about if we add some really cool ornaments? So it's funny, none of these arrangements are your traditional, like, currier and eyes, right? I mean, I always like to think of things a little bit differently. So we're just going to pop these in wherever we think they might look good. Some tall, some not so tall. Again, like your deer antler, you don't want to see this sitting here up here like this, right? You don't want to see the stick, so kind of snuggle it down in.
Yeah.
What do we think? Are you feeling cold? Getting a little cold? A little chilly? Okay, I'm going to snug in this little white pine cone just because I like it and it brings a little bit of white right into the front here. And then, oh, you know what I meant to do? I'm going to do this real quick. Even though that botanical is very natural feeling and it's very botanical, this is called ting, and I love it because it just brings a little bit of something to an arrangement. So I'm just going to quickly come over and just put a couple of these in here, and all it does is it's going to bring a little bit of light, and it might be a little bit reflective. So I think that's really kind of pretty. Even though it's very natural, just a couple of these, just add a little something. And if you don't like it, when you get it home, you know you can take it out. And this ting comes in champagne color or silver color or gold. Again, I'm just popping them in. You might want to change the placement, but just so that it has a little bit of light there. Okay, so now let's add these beautiful silver branches. I love spray paint for many reasons because you can just change things so easily. So for instance, I have some gold branches that I'm going to be using in a few minutes here, and they were silver this afternoon. So guess what I did? I spray painted them. Spray paint is great for so many things. Spray paint is great for, I remember one time I got a great deal on pots, a really great deal on pots, but they weren't the color that I wanted, and so I just spray painted them. So you can do so much with spray paint. Okay, guys, what do we think? Should I add one more? Is this enough, or should I add more? Who says enough? Uh-oh. Who says add more? Oh, I think the add more's got it. You know what? If you don't want more, just take it out. That's what I'm saying. And also, if you have a tiny little car, you can always just take these branches out and put them back in when you get home. All right, one more thing for this ice baby, which is making me feel really cold. I'm going to add a few of these really cute blueberries. You'll see them when you come down here, all those of you in the back. But I'm just going to pop a couple of them in, just along the front, just to further make us feel cold. I love berries. I think berries are so pretty this time of year. You can use as many as you want. I think they're great. Got a lot of good color. All right, so there we go. Ice baby. Okay, now, next we're going to do a wreath, and you're going to have to just trust me on this, because I had to stage a little bit of this ahead of time, so Trudy said I couldn't keep you all here till 11. Well, I got to go home on the Mass Pike, so I could still not get home till 11. But so I love, as I said already, I love doing custom wreaths, but to actually make a wreath is very time consuming. You take bunches, you wrap, I mean, 2 hours later you're done. I don't have that time. I have too many clients. So my hack, if you will, is I buy a regular old balsam wreath, and then I told you whenever you're snipping little things out of your container, save those little bits and add them to your wreath. So for instance, this, first I gotta find my top. This is just a regular balsam wreath. I augmented it with some German boxwood and some magnolia, and now I'm going to augment it with a few more things, and then we're going to go from there. What's interesting, and I put some juniper in here as well, what's interesting about wreaths, they're so fun because you're the boss, right? So you can decide, I'm going to do a bow, I'm not going to do a bow. I'm going to do a bow on the side, I'm going to do a bow on the bottom, I'm going to do a bow kitty corner, or I'm going to just make just the very bottom of the wreath the focal point. So that's what I love about wreaths. They're so much fun. I'm just going to add a little bit of this arborvitae, and so all I do is I snip a little piece like that, and then you feel around in the wreath until you can kind of feel where the wires are that hold it all together, and then just jam it in. It's so simple. And in a matter of 10 minutes, really, 15 minutes, you make a wreath that looks custom, but it's really just your balsam wreath that you can get anywhere. Does anybody make homemade wreaths, like the real time-consuming ones? Good for you. I tried that once, and I liked it. I made one from my own house, but I thought I could never do this for all my clients. That would be way too much. So for this wreath, my theme, you guys are going to say, finally, is going to be more traditional. So we're going to do, like, the reds and the colors and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm just adding a little bit of this arborvitae. And when I divide a wreath, this is the other thing. When I'm looking at a wreath, it might just be me. I like to see it going clockwise. Anybody else? Like, how the branches, it throws me off if it goes counterclockwise. So I try to have it always go clockwise if possible. Yeah, and then just kind of, you're just filling it in. So when you come down, you'll see how nice and full this looks. If things fall out, it's not a big deal. You can just put them back in. Many times I will glue gun them. I'll hot glue gun. So if you have, especially if you're doing ornaments or things like that, very simple just to glue gun it right on there. So that's so far. Now I'm going to do and add some, let me just show you if you can see. I just added a little bit of that arborvitae, just kind of gives it another. And I like a big wreath on my door. I mean, I think that I like a 30-inch. Most doors are about 30 inches or 36 for your outside doors. I tend to like a wreath that will really fill in. But you know, sometimes think off the beaten path. Maybe instead of one large wreath, you do 3 smaller wreaths and you put ribbon in between. You know, something different. All right. So I'm going to do some red ornaments. Dump all these out. I'm not going to do a bow on this one. I mean, I could, and like I said, I love a good ribbon. Really love a good ribbon, but I'm not going to do a bow. I'm going to have my base down here be the star. So while I'm doing that, I'm just going to grab a little more magnolia, stick that in here. So all I do with the ornaments, sometimes you can buy them with picks already on them. These are just, I just bought these, like the big boxes that you can buy, and then I just hot glue the picks. Or if I was able to use a glue gun here, I might just do a glue gun and glue the ornaments on. The nice thing about when you pick with them is you can actually take them out and reuse them from year to year. So I'm just going to put on some of these red ornaments. And I'm just, like I said, I'm snugging them in so that I can feel that they are into that wire. And what I use to hang my wreath, or at least to show me where the top is, it's called flocked wire. Have you heard of that? It's a long wire. It's got almost like a felt on it, so it's easy on your hands. This is the time of year where my fingers are killing me. I got spray paint all over me, glitter in my hair. I know, you're saying, oh, you poor thing. You have to work outside. So see what I've done so far. Very simple. I've just put the red berries next to the magnolia. So I have the magnolia spaced, and now, take 2. What I'm gonna do is focus down here, and that's where my star is gonna be. So in lieu of a bow or ribbon, I'm gonna put something, I'm gonna make that down there much more hefty. It's kind of hard to demo the wreath because you guys can't really see what I'm doing. I really need a mirror over me or something. And now I have different size pine cones, so I'm just going to start playing with those and putting those down there to beef up that area. And some of them are spray painted white. I did that on purpose because sometimes the white will bring a little bit more light to the wreath itself. It's really so easy to do and so satisfying when you see your containers that are so beautiful. I know you're all going to do beautiful containers. And then you can say, and I made the wreath. And people go, what? That's crazy. I thought you bought that. Nope, I made that. It's not hard. Go to any of the Michaels or Hobby Lobby, any of those places now. Everything's 50% off. It's amazing how cheaply you can get a lot of this stuff to put on your wreath. So I'll just show you. I'm going to add a few more things, but can you see what I did? Yeah. Very simple. I just was kind of like working in threes and kind of putting things till they look the way I wanted them to. And again, if anything falls out, you'll forgive me, and then you'll just put it back in. All right, I'm going to add some blueberries because I really like that idea. It seems very traditional, so we're going to stick a couple of those in there. And then I'm going to need your audience participation again. All right, so here comes the audience participation art. I have added these blueberries, and it might be hard to see, because especially if you're way in the back, but I want you guys to tell me if you think I should add any white berries, okay? So here's my wreath. Again, if I was doing this at home, it would take me 25 minutes, if that. Augment it, throw a couple balls in there, add your berries. What about white berries? Do we say yes or no? Who says yes? Who says no? Oh, you guys, you're like evenly split. I'll put the white berries in. If you don't like them, you can take them out, okay? We've got a divided crowd here, I can just tell. And also sometimes too, like less is more. I see some containers where it's like they threw in everything but the kitchen sink. Sometimes you need to say, I think that's good. I don't think we need to, just because we have it doesn't mean we need to use it, right? So if you do get this wreath and you don't like the berries, just pull them out. And these are all, like I said, they're hard plastic, they're waterproof, weatherproof, birdproof. The birds will be like, what? She has the worst berries. Don't eat at that house. If you don't hang this right away, I would suggest either leaving it outside or misting it so that it doesn't get all dried out. And never make the mistake like one of my clients did of putting your wreath in between your door and your storm door. Guess what happens? It fries in no time. So, all right, here is the wreath with the berries. So for those of you who said no berries, have you changed your mind? Maybe. All right. Last but not least, I am not a floral designer. Did we already figure that out? I'm not a floral designer. I love doing florals. I did some of the florals for my daughter's recent wedding, which was really fun, but I left the heavy lifting to the pros because it's not my area of expertise. But because of you guys, I'm going to try, right? You seem like a good crowd. You're not going to make fun of me, right? So this is the inside floral arrangement for a table, okay? And once again, because of time, I started to build it. All it is like a plastic bowl like this, and then you soak the Oasis, which is that floral foam, and that's in here. Now, some people don't like to use Oasis. People are trying to get away from that. If you had a bowl or some kind of a vase that you wanted to fill, you can use chicken wire. You can also take the stems of your plants. Like if you cut off some of your roses, take that stem, bend it, and then stick it into the vase, and you can almost make a grid with the actual stems of the plant. So that's probably the most eco-friendly alternative. So this is what I've got happening so far. And then roses. So these are really pretty roses. They have been conditioned overnight with a recut, freshly cut, with a floral additive to the water. And I'm just going to try. You're going to be gentle and patient with me, I know. I'm going to try to, if you look, imagine that I'm looking at the rectangle like this. I'm going to try to take my roses and just kind of go across. So I'm just going to go right through the middle with the roses. And when these are done, like when they go by, you might get, a week out of them or whatever. When these go by, you can replace them with ornaments. And then, because these greens will be fine, especially if you keep them cool, these will probably be fine till Christmas, almost. So if you can keep them cool, you can maybe keep this arrangement a little bit longer. And again, with a centerpiece or a table piece, you don't want it this high, because you don't want to be like, hey, how's your mashed potatoes? Good. How's your roast beef? Can't see you. You want to keep them low, so that's when I'm trying to look at the final height of any of my flowers that I'm working with, I try to keep that in mind. Are there any floral designers in the room? Be honest. Yeah. Do not be nice to me. We all just try our best, right? Just doing our best. And this is so fun. It's a lot of the same ideas of doing a container garden. It's like it's contrast, it's colors, it's, you know, accessories, all that kind of good stuff. All right, so I've just kind of gone zigzaggy with my roses. And then all I have down below here is this is balsam, and then I threw in a little bit of that long needle pine just because I liked the textures with it. Now we're going to add some bling. So I wanted to show you, so for instance, if the roses go by, just do this, right? You could do ornaments, go all the way through. But I just felt like red roses were so perfect for this. Now I'm going to add some gold ornaments, which I just did the twigs, you know, hot glued the stick on there. And those are going to kind of go on those other quadrants. And I have some smaller ones. And obviously this is going to be seen from all sides, so I need to make sure that I keep doing this so that I'm not missing something. Okay, so now, let me add two more things, and then I'm going to start to fill in with some more greenery, because that's the part you don't really want to see the oasis or the floral foam. So I'm going to fill in with just some pine cones, very simple, very, you know, holiday-like. So can you see I'm filling it? Now I want to start adding some greenery. And I did bring some really pretty cedar. Where is that? Where's my cedar? Oh, here's this. I can add some of this. I love eucalyptus, and I love the little eucalyptus, the naked seeded, which is just no leaves on it. It's very, very pretty. Anybody ever try to do floral design, or just go to like the store and buy flowers and put them all together? Have you done it? It's fun, right? Again, I think creating can be fun, whether you're crocheting or you're knitting or you're painting or you're building a birdhouse. It's like, to create is so fun, and it gives you a sense of accomplishment when you're all done that, hey, I did that. So I'm going to tell you, I just put this eucalyptus, you probably can't see, but I just put this in here, and I don't like it because it's too heavy. So I'm taking that out. But I am going to add some of this incense cedar, and then I'm going to add some regular cedar because it's just so pretty the way it drapes. And I'm ultimately trying to cover up that oasis. You guys are a great audience. Again, I want to be a resource, so if you have any questions even after tonight that you didn't get a chance to ask or whatever, go on my website, thecapturedgarden.com, and send me an email, or you can sign up for my newsletter on that as well. But I'm happy to answer any questions if I don't answer something tonight. So now I'm going to just fill in with a little bit of boxwood because there's still some spots that are a little bit visible that I don't want to see. And I'm trying to keep things low. And to be honest, the light's not great. So if you get this home and you go, wow, she missed a whole spot. Sorry. I can't see anything down here. So now I'm going to add a little bit more of this incense cedar, and then I'm going to add maybe some of that Port Orford cedar. really like the way it's just kind of draping and very soft feeling. Not too high. I think I'm almost there. All right, let's see. I like it. The only thing that I might do, I might need to still add. What do you guys think about some kind of height or something for some branch material? Yes. So what I was thinking, remember how I told you there were silver branches that I had earlier, but I turned them gold? So something like this. So you see how it's not heavy, so you can still have dinner and look at the person across the table, but if we just add something like this, it gives it a little bit of height. If you don't like them, like I said, you can just keep them out when you win this. You all bought your raffle tickets, I know. All right, one more. All right, so let's just put a few branches in. Nothing too crazy. I think we're done. What do you guys think? Wait a minute, more audience participation. Think, let's think. Possibly. Okay, do we need white? All right, so we're gonna do the whole white berry thing again, and someone's gonna say yes and someone's gonna say no. Let's see if it's the same people who said no last time. White berries, a couple white berries? Yes. Who says yes? Who says no? Who says no? All right, well, I'll put a few in. I wouldn't add them. This would be me. I probably wouldn't. So all you people who voted yes, I'm sorry. But I think that's almost like too much now. Like I could show you what I do this, and to me it almost detracts from everything that's happening. You see what I mean? Like
No. Change your mind, no.
What do you guys think? So who thinks no now? Raise your hand. Good job. I mean, again, it's one of those things where you have to say, I have it, but I don't have to use it. So I think, I'm not a floral designer, but I would put this on my table. Again, if you get home and you say, wow, there's a whole big opening there, you can just say, oh, that's right, she couldn't see. But I think I'm covering up all the oases, so that's the goal. So thank you all very much. So fast, so I apologize, and like I said, I had to pre-stage a lot of this stuff, but if you have any questions, again, you can ask me now if you have a few, or if you have something you think of later, feel free to email me. Here come all the L's with all the goodies.